I want to turn to Australia's place in the global economy. And I do this for two reasons. First, the dimensions of change and consequent economic and social choices before us will determine the future shape and face of Australia. And secondly, because we must be open to and not shy away from the opportunities and challenges that this century presents to us in our region. Put simply, Australia's future is in Asia. The facts are compelling. We know that global economic power continues to shift east. In the 1950s, 15% of global GDP was within 10,000 kilometres of Australia. Today it's a third, and in 2050 it will be 2/3. By 2030, Asia will become the largest consumption zone in the world, with 2.5 billion consumers. Australian businesses will have the opportunity to expand as the goods and services we produce and provide increasingly become the purchasers of those in Asia. By the end of this decade, our region will overtake the combined economic output of North America and Europe, and Asia will become the world's largest economic region. These changes will reshape our global economy and our economy with profound and lasting results. It is the key public policy transformation of our generation. This was explored extensively in the White Paper on Australia in the Asian Century, which was prepared in collaboration with key business leaders and community stakeholders. And the fact that the new government has chosen to archive the website of this White Paper, which was released only late last year, demonstrates again their short-sighted obsession with petty partisanship. Australia's policy settings, economic, domestic and international, have to reflect this context of change. And what I say to you today is progressives have to play a central role in defining the path we take. The prerequisite to Australia's successful navigation of this change has to be open-mindedness. It's something I've spoken about before, because I believe that how we imagine ourselves and how we define who we are sets the parameters of our engagement with the world and in turn the opportunities that we can perceive. So I want to share with you a personal and a very label story. I came to Australia in 1976 when I was just 8 years old. And my parents, my Malaysian Chinese father and my mother, who was the third daughter from a farming family from the Adelaide Hills, had courted and married before the White Australia policy was fully dismantled. When I migrated, not all of the attitudes that engendered it had dissipated, and sadly, they still have not in some quarters. For too much of my early life, I felt like the outsider. I felt I was seen as less Australian. This improved over the years as our society changed, and of course, feeling included is the sum of many things: family, friends, community, even watching the test at Adelaide Oval. But for me, the most powerful public voice of inclusion was Paul Keating. And when Keating spoke to Australians of our history, of the fall of Singapore, of Kokoda, of our place in Asia, he spoke of an Australia of which I was a part. The Prime Minister of Australia, the Labor Prime Minister, spoke to me. More importantly, he spoke to Australians in these terms, and he helped us to imagine ourselves differently. And through this personal experience, I understood the power of imagination in forming our policies and in defining our purpose. Because ultimately, engagement with our region means a willingness and capacity both to see and to take the opportunities as they emerge. And it means reimagining and continuing to reshape who we are and who we can be in our region. If we imagine ourselves as Fortress Australia, if we fear the consequences of Asia's development, we limit our own progress. So the challenge for the nation in the Asian century is not only around our economic settings, our investment rules, our trade negotiations, although it encompasses all of these things. It also lies in how we see ourselves, how we envision our relationship with others. This is a dialogue the country is currently having primarily through the prism of trade and foreign investment. But we need a deeper and fuller dialogue around openness within the community. In my new areas of responsibility, trade and investment, we have seen what happens when the current party of government refuses to engage in this deeper dialogue. They've chosen yet again to rely on a 3-word slogan, open for business. How ridiculous, given the largest investment boom in the nation's history occurred under a Labor government. But despite this slogan, the Coalition's position in fact reflects an awkward clash and tension between the National Party's protectionism and the neoliberal bravado of Andrew Robb and Joe Hockey. Perhaps there's no greater recent example of the Coalition's inconsistency on these matters than the proposed takeover of GrainCorp by Archer Daniels Midland. Now, this is a matter currently before the Foreign Investment Review Board, so the specifics of consideration will become clear in time. But in general terms, there are a few points worth making. First, foreign investment has helped accelerate Australia's growth and development. We're a capital-hungry economy which has relied on foreign investment to help create jobs, business opportunities and to lift growth. And the scale of external investment in the growth of our resources sector in recent years is the most contemporary example of this. Second, if we are serious about becoming the food bowl of Asia, we have to front up to the reality and necessity of foreign investment in our agricultural sector. As a nation that exports 2/3 of our total food production, it is inconceivable that we will be able to develop and scale up production to enable us to fully tap into the growing consumer markets of Asia without foreign investment. Of course, Labor recognises that national interest considerations are key, but issues that could be properly dealt with through other means, for example, through our competition and regulatory framework, Foreign Investment Review Board conditions or corporate regulation, should not be used as a pretext to oppose foreign investment. Australia cannot afford reflexive antipathy to foreign investment. Our engagement with the world is also expressed through trade policy, and this is an area which will be the subject of significant focus over the coming year as the Coalition government seeks to finalise agreements, free trade agreements with China, Japan and South Korea within the next 12 months. Labor governments have long understood the centrality of our trade performance as a key driver of the nation's economic prosperity and have consistently advocated for a more open global trading system. And we have also recognised our responsibility to those workers and industries affected by broader reforms. Modern Labor's motivation on trade policy, from Hawke and Keating and since, is driven by the belief that our nation's sustained prosperity lies in tapping into markets beyond our shores. And our approach to trade is guided by three simple principles: that any trade agreement must be in the national interest, that the objective of trade is to maximise the nation's prosperity in the global economy, and that industry, union and community groups have to be engaged. Trade reform is one of the key practical means by which we make real our opportunities in the world and in our region. The transaction and detail of any agreement is important, but for Labor so too is the ongoing dialogue with the community about the rationale and goal of trade policy. Look, the Labor project means we cannot simply appeal to those who already agree with us or dismiss those who do not. Rather, we must always work to bring the weight of the community together behind us and behind our reform agenda. Labor never has the luxury of only playing to a narrow audience. We have to build agreement, we have to persuade, and we have to have both the courage to hold firm and the capacity to convince. At times, we have been found wanting of either, and together we must engender both. And we start by recalling again our purpose. We are a party of ideas, and we are also a party of government. We don't simply seek a Senate quota or a particular seat. Labor always seeks to govern for all Australians. And in times of cynicism, in the face of the Abbott invective, please take a moment to contemplate an Australia without Labor governments, an Australia without universal health care, where someone's income, not injury, determines the level of care they receive, an Australia not brave enough to recognise those whose land we inhabit and not big-hearted enough to apologise to those we have harmed, an Australia where workers' rights extend no further than the minimum wage and the most basic of conditions, an Australia where the opportunity embodied in tertiary education remains beyond the reach of those most in need, and an Australia where gender and race and other attribute overshadows ability, an Australia where parochial interests drive economic decision-making, where we keep our eyes closed to the region and the world beyond our shores. It is because of our movement, it is because of Labor governments that Australia is the country it is today. Yes, these are tough times for Labor. Losing government is never easy, and watching the growing culture of secrecy and control under the Abbott government is harder yet. But we continue the fight because we always believe, in a better Australia. We are Labor people and we believe in a fair go, in a just society, in a strong economy. We believe in delivering change that enables all Australians to be the best of who they can be, and we always strive to build a strong, fair and equal Australia for today and for the generations to come. Thank you very much.